Hello and welcome to my channel. I've made it to 100,000 miles. Let's talk about this milestone. Welcome back and thanks for being here. 100,000 miles, what a milestone, but why is it a milestone? I grew up driving cars that couldn't even count to 100,000 miles. They only had 5 digits in the odometer, and back in those days, 100,000 miles was a big milestone. Today, modern cars, not only do they roll on past 100,000 miles and farther, they're all very capable of going to 100,000 miles. So could it be because modern drivers, today's drivers, are just so fickle and buy another car every 3 to 5 years before they get a chance to even put 100,000 miles on a car? Or do more and more drivers just live in places where they don't need to drive it, and it takes a lot longer to get to 100,000 miles? I don't know. But to guys like me who drive the car a lot, 100,000 miles is not a big deal. But somehow it's still satisfying to watch those zeros flip over. So I don't know. I'm glad to be here at 100,000 miles. As far as changing over cars every 3 to 5 years, I haven't really had that affliction. I kept my first new car, which was a Nissan Sentra, for 11 years and about 120,000 miles. I could have kept it longer, but that car was a base model, just a total stripper. I mean, today's base model cars are actually pretty nice. They've got power windows and air conditioning and countless other features that just people today look at that and say, oh yeah, that's just a base model. But no, back in my day, that base model car, it had crank down windows, a 4-speed transmission. The AC was an option, which I demanded to have. A stereo was an option. Vinyl seats that just scald your skin when you get in. Super basic car, and it was like a tin can. So the car served me very well, and I hardly ever had any problems with it. But it was time to move on. I got a 98 Jetta TDI, and I kept that car for 20 years and 445,000 miles. But those cars there, my primary cars, I kept them for a long time, and I think I will with this GTI as well. I had already listed some issues that I had with my GTI in my 3-year anniversary video. I will share it up here. I don't want to rehash the list. I'll flash a quick list up here real quick, but I will restate that the vast majority of those problems, with the exception of the cabin blower motor failure, the rest of the problems, they were either petty, self-inflicted, or both. And the only reason I even talked about them was just as a point of fact. I wasn't complaining about my car. I still think the car is great. The vast majority of these things, I just fixed the car myself in my driveway, with the exception of a few pre-delivery items that were covered under warranty. So the car has not needed warranty work. But none of those facts stopped the VW haters from flooding that video's remarks sections with all of these comments about how perfect their Asian cars have been. And nothing against Asian cars. I think a lot of them are fantastic, although the most reliable ones are also the boring ones. And I also got scolded by VW fanatics who think that their GTIs are as precious as McLarens, that I shouldn't be using or abusing my car the way that I do. But that's okay. All of this engagement, good or bad, it's all good for the channel. The channel benefits from it, so I don't mind the engagement. And if somebody's getting particularly snotty, I'm mature enough to just keep on scrolling. And if it's really bad, no sweat, hide you from the channel. I don't have a problem with that. So basically, I haven't had any new problems since that video, and I just keep on driving. It's not a big deal. So what abuse has my car suffered in its 100,000 miles of daily driving? Well, let me frame it this way before I get to the abuse. I've been told that a GTI is a performance car, and it should only be used for sport driving. And I've been scolded about taking the car on road trips because that runs up the odometer and therefore devalues the car, as if it's a McLaren. And then some people think that I should get a beater and drive a beater car as a commuter instead of driving my GTI, because apparently the GTI is above commuter duty, and all of that is laughable. And perhaps the best of all is because I use my GTI for utility, I've been told many, many times that I need to get a pickup truck. Need to get a pickup truck. So let me address each of those points just right down the list. For me, sport driving, that usually happens unexpectedly. I don't autocross anymore, and drag racing is long behind me. And so anytime I have an opportunity to have a little fun, I don't usually plan it. And if I have a beater or a commuter car, then I'm going to be in the wrong car for having fun. And so I prefer to just be in the right car all the time. And that's, of course, my GTI. And then if I were to get a beater for commuting, I've been encouraged many times to get a beater, get a commuter car, a beater. And if I get a beater, then I don't know what its reliability is, where it's been. And it could leave me stranded somewhere. Of course, my GTI could at this point too, but if I get a beater, I don't know what's going to happen. And it could very well leave me stranded. And then, of course, I've got the additional costs and time of maintaining said beater. I'd rather just drive my GTI. Maybe someday it'll be a beater. I don't know. And there are far more comfortable cars to drive on long road trips than a GTI, but if I take one of those on a road trip and suddenly decide that I want to take a fun detour, then I'm in the wrong car for having fun. It's just not going to be the same experience. So again, I'd rather just take the car, the GTI, on a road trip. And so with all of that in mind, nearly every car I've owned since my first Volkswagen has been my everything car. And the GTI is a great everything car. Obviously, it's a great sport driver. It's a lot of fun. But let's face it, it's not an exotic sports car. It's a compromise car. And it's a fantastic compromise between performance, utility, and fuel economy. An exotic sports car is not. A fantastic utility vehicle is not a great performance car, and it's not economical. And an economical car isn't necessarily a good performance car. So the GTI is a great blend of the three. As a commuter, it gets 30 miles to the gallon pretty easily, even though I speed a lot. When I speed a lot, and I speed way too much, I still get like 28 miles to the gallon because a lot of my commute is on the highway. And 35 miles per gallon is very easy to accomplish on the highway. And as a hatchback, it's able to swallow up some pretty large cargo. And so you take those two and combine them, the highway economy and the cargo capacity, and it's a great travel car. I can fit all kinds of stuff in the car. And then if I buy some things, I can fit even more stuff in the car. So why wouldn't I want to take a GTI on a road trip for the fuel economy and the practicality and utility of it, especially if I think that I might like to have some fun. Some say that I should get a truck or SUV to fulfill my utility needs, and to that I say, show me a truck or SUV that can accelerate and handle like a GTI, get better than 30 miles to the gallon on the highway, and be had for less than $30,000. All of those things the GTI has, but show me an SUV or a truck that can do that, and maybe I'll think about it. But odds are such a truck or SUV just doesn't exist. And the notion that I need a pickup truck, come on. The GTI has a payload capacity of 1,000 pounds. And if I'm alone in the car and I don't have a bunch of stuff in the car, and all I need is to take some trash or brush to my local dump, which is what I use a trailer for most often anyway, then why would I need the full-time penalty and cost of owning a pickup truck when I only need to use said capacity 2 to 3 times a year? And odds are I would never use the full capacity of that truck anyhow. And by the way, quite ironically, I go to the dump and I see a lot of pretty pickup trucks, and they've got little utility trailers behind them, so they don't even use their trucks as utility vehicles. So no, I can't justify that cost. So back to my YouTube haters who say I should get rid of the car when I hit 100,000 miles because it's disposable. Get rid of it. It's here, 100,000 miles, and it isn't going anywhere. When should I get rid of it? 5 years? 10 years? In 5 years, at the 5-year mark, if I keep up my current rate of driving, my car might have 150,000 miles on it, and at 10 years, 300,000 miles. Now, I don't know if I'm going to keep up this rate of driving, especially if I get a second vehicle, which won't be a pickup truck. But if I have another vehicle that I start splitting the miles between, then obviously that accumulation on my GTI is going to kind of reduce. But I think that GTI is always going to be my daily driver. So will it last 5 years or 10 years? In my experience with cars, I didn't really start having unpredictable problems with them until around the 11-year mark. That was when maybe a hose might crack that I didn't spot on an inspection. I replace my hoses usually every 10 years. But plastic bits in the engine bay, they could fail without you knowing it because you can't see some of these things. Maybe some electronics in the car, when they get old, they might fail. I don't know. I didn't really, my Mark III did not have as much sophisticated electronics in it. So I can't say I lived that. But if my history with my Jetta is any indicator, I've still got a lot of miles left in my GTI. We'll see how it goes. I'll clean the intake when I need it cleaned. I'll replace rubber bits when they need to be replaced. And if I break any plastic, I'll replace that. I don't think it's going to become quite a nightmare for a while. It's definitely not, I mean, not even at the 5-year mark. I think maybe when it's up around 200,000 miles, maybe I'll have some things I need to be concerned about. So there's my summary, 100,000 miles. I will let you know as the car continues to accumulate miles how things are going. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. And as always, thank you for being here. Take care.